Welcome. This is another Out of the Office, and I'm Bill Schuh, and we are with Bill Tilman of Abaco today. Hey, Bill, want to give a howdy?
Hello, everybody. We're staying home.
Staying COVID safe. This training is being done over the ethersphere, and so Bill's at his place. I'm at mine. We are going to pick up where we left off. Now, last time we did an RT Hunter, right, Bill?
That's right. We did an RT Hunter, which is simply something to see what's powered on and attached to the 1553 bus on channel A. Now, all we did is simply ping each of the RT numbers, 0 through 30. And they should have responded if they existed or can talk.
Right, and so then as part of using the BusTools 1553 demo, then we could also pull up the sequential monitor, see how the system behaved, and it gives us a feel for the type of thing that we should be seeing when we're actually connected to hardware. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And really for what we kind of want to do today, we're kind of looking at actually attaching to hardware, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to set up the test system or the bus control list. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's super. I think part of what came out of this was an interesting discussion. So when we're using the RT Hunter the way it's set up, we're using a mode code that was required implementation under Notice 2. If your system is older than 1553 B Notice 2, then what we're going to show you today is probably what you're going to have to do instead. And here, we're calling this RT Hunter 2 RT mapping. So what are we up to, Bill?
Well, what we're going to do really is to show you some of the things that need to be done when you're looking at a 1553 bus and going to talk to the subaddresses. It's not necessarily true that all subaddresses are valid or being used, or that each subaddress has every word count available for you to talk to or for the bus controller to talk to. So I did start this up actually with a piece of hardware. So I have our R15 USB box, which has 2 channels. So I did start, and I am starting this up in a mode where I have hardware. You do not have to do that, but I'm going to do that because we're going to jump into something that actually takes advantage of the hardware. One of the things we'll show is that we can do a lot of the editing still with our text editor, but then we need to pull it in and actually test it and see that we did what we thought we were going to do, and we kind of need to do that at some point. So I thought, here's a good place to show it.
Fair enough. Now, the point, of course, that Bill said is that much of this you can prepare still using the demo. But what we'd like to show you, as he touched on, is what is the outcome going to look like? Because we don't want to lose you on just doing a bunch of, pardon expression, assignments. We want you to see, hey, this is going to be the fruit of your labor when you do this. So Bill and I had a little bit of a hiccup here, and one of the things that caught us up just a little bit is that we have multiple different versions of BusTools on his computer. And one of them was, of course, the demo that we've been doing all of our work with so far, but then also the live ones that we're going to jump into here to show you how the live system works. So be careful, don't load your hardware and then start running off on the demo mode and find out that nothing's working. Keep in mind that you may have different versions on your system.
Yeah, so bus controller, I do have hardware running here. So I've imported a bus control list. I'm going to actually go to a different one. And we've seen this before where we go and import other stuff. So we have our RT Hunter mapping. Is that the one? No. Okay, let's back up. So I'm going to go to our bus controller list, and I'm going to actually import the previous RT Hunter that we had. And what I want to point out here is right here, all we've done is we've pinged each of the RTs to see if it exists. So that was this one. So what we want to go to this time is something where we're going to ping each subaddress and then the word count. So the word count, we're going to want to create a list, and all I did was in the text editor, I went through and I said, okay, take every word count for subaddress 1, every one that's possible. So you'll see here, word count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down through 31. And this is subaddress 1. So only thing that this one does is check RT0 on subaddress 1, every word count for a BC to RT type of message. And that's what this will run for us. Let's try running that, and we're going to tweak this for a reason. You'll see what we want to show is not all RT subaddress word counts are necessarily implemented. There may be a subaddress that's invalidated. There might be various word counts that are invalidated, or only one word count that's validated or real and usable from a subaddress, only a specific word count. So there's a lot of things you can run into in checking this. Let's just try running it and let it run and see where I left it at. So here is, let's go ahead and stop it here. Subaddress 01, I started with the word count of 00 or 32. The next one is word count 1, 2, and we'll see that there is a response every time here. And what we want to do, and you'll see the word count here first, it goes up all the way until we get to, there's word count of 31 with subaddress 01, and then it goes to 32, and then it goes back down. So we're just repeating this loop in this case. What I'm going to do is show you first the scenario where an RT does not implement all of those things. So we can do a right click here on RT configuration for that sim. I'm going to play with this subaddress number 1, and I'm going to go to this tab here that says legalize word counts. So here's the BC to RT. These are the received data buffers that would be used, and we're legalizing what word count is valid for this RT. I'm going to just turn off, let's say 1, 3, and 7, and we'll see what that does to us. All right, so I've got it running. I'm going to capture a snapshot. So here we see that. So we've got word count of 1, 3, and then what do we have? 7, I believe it was, wasn't it, Bill? Okay. And word number 7. So what we'll see is we'll see the data coming from the bus controller, but then the status word, and there's 2 different ways that the RT can respond. They're allowed to respond with no response. So a response is no response, and that's internal to the RT, really. you won't see a response. You won't see a status word. In this case, was set up to respond, but we set the message error bit. So if the word count is not allowed, that message basically is not allowed, we're going to set the message error bit, and we're going to respond with that error that says, hey, there's something wrong here. That's all it really tells you.
Now, can we do, here it goes, find error. So then can I tap on that and make that useful?
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. So we can find an error. What we need to first do is define which error we want to find. We can find any error, but it might be useful to find a specific error. In this case, the message error bit. In this case, in my perfect 1553 bus that I have in my quantum lab here, the any error will do the job, but potentially if you're on a real aircraft or a real system, even in the lab, you may have other errors going on. So you can define a specific error, in this case the message error bit.
Okay, so earlier you stated there's two different ways that RT could respond. One, not respond at all, or two, respond with the ME bit. So I saw in your table there, you also had a no response that you could check.
Correct. So it will either do no response or it will do a message error bit set.
Oh, so in response to an illegal.
That is correct. You're right. We should say that is an illegalized command.
Right. So this is good to know that an RT has got to be one or the other. It can't have one subaddress that does a no response and another subaddress that does a message error bit.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of little nuances, a lot of different nuances about 1553 standard. So yeah, that's one of them. So if you have a bunch of RTs connected to your wire, to your bus, you might not want to use this no response, although all of our messages here are going to a single RT number, RT00. So this shouldn't matter. Well, let's give it a try. So we'll turn off the message error bit. We'll look for a no response. And okay, it doesn't find any of those. So that's good. It worked. So.
Okay, super. Then we're good to go. There is no no responses here. Everything is like we expected. Now, if I remember correctly, when you first set this up right now, this is a BC to RT data transfer, and so that covers like one side of the RT, because then we still have the transmit side of the RT buffers, right?
Correct. Correct.
Right.
We still have to do those.
That's interesting. So let me ask you a question. So in the years that you've been associated with 1553, why wouldn't someone just specify that all 32 words are what I have open? I don't use any of the other data words, enumerations. All I use is the 00, which means all 32 words. Why wouldn't you use that just regularly in all your designs and just let your software then mask it out?
Well, that's probably an easy way to do it. That's true. One of the reasons that I am aware of is if an example would be a navigation position. One of the instances where you might only use portions of the word or start over again. So one of the instances where you might use only a portion of the subaddress word count or not allow other word count options is to get the full message. So if half of a message is not valid, and I'm thinking like a position, so latitude and longitude, if you only get half of that, there's really no meaning, or it's not a good meaning. So you really want to require them to get the full latitude, longitude, and maybe the altitude. That might be one instance. The other area that is being talked about these days is cybersecurity. Somebody might be able to do bad things if you're reading or writing to only portions of a message. So that's another instance of it. If it's a critical box, it should go through RT validation testing, and these types of things are absolutely required, but it's up to you to define what are the valid word counts and subaddresses. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. So, because it would be really easy it seems like it'd be much easier if they only had the 32-word block, and as a cyber person that you could get into that. You know, it crossed my mind too that maybe one of the things to do that would give you a warning as an RT that somebody is RT mapping you. Is that you would come up with, you would monitor that and see how many times you're getting hit. You know, it's something going down your subaddress numbers, right?
Right. Yeah. And that, it might be fairly simple to mask that if you spread those out over time. But if if they want to find out about what's legal or what's legal to send you bad stuff and send you only half of a lat long, that's one way to find out, is just going through this mapping.
Awesome. Well, already then. So we've shown people on how to find out how to map their terminal, and we may have also showed them how to cyber entry into a terminal.
Yeah, there's a lot that has to happen to be able to do that, but that's one of the ways that people are looking at right now. Left for the student is to fill out the rest of that, and then you have an RT mapping of a remote terminal, checking each subaddress. In this case, I've only got 8 subaddresses for the word count up from 0 to 32.
Okay, so just so that people understand, maybe they didn't see one of the earlier videos that we've done, but BusTools has the ability of exporting into a text file what is in the BC list, which is where Bill's arrow is right now on the BC list. So all he has to do is go over here and hit bus list options and hit export. And then that's where he's doing this work. And just doing it into a text editor. You can take it into a more sophisticated text editor if you don't like the normal notepad. But here then, if you want to, you could do substitutes and replaces and things of that nature. Just watch what you're doing because you don't want to do a global and mess everything up.
Yeah. Be careful with that global. It'll get you, and it got me a bunch of times. But then you get the hang of it, and then it's turn the crank, step, and repeat kind of thing.
Bill, thanks so much. I appreciate your time. Hey, this is Bill Schuh and
Bill Tilman
with Out of the Office with using BusTools 1553. Bye-bye.
All right. That's a wrap.